Pleasant afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Corporate Governance 101 with a Gender Lens webinar organized by the Women's Business Council Philippines and the Institute of Corporate Directors. Before we start with the program, let me quickly remind you of the house rules. Please always mute your device. Please do not turn on your video. Feel free to use the chat box or show your reactions using emoticons. Please post your questions on the Q&A button. Please complete the evaluation form at the end of the event. When posting on social media, you may use these hashtags, which you can also see at the bottom left of the screen. Hashtag corporate governance, hashtag womenbizph, hashtag ICD Philippines, hashtag gender lens. The program will officially start after the countdown. Thank you.
Noon pa man, malaki na ang naging bahagi ng mga kababaihan sa lipunang Pilipino. Kaisa sila sa marubdob na paghahangad ng kalayaan ng ating lahi. Kabilang sila sa paglinang ng ating makulay na sining at mayamang kultura. Kasapi sila sa pagtataguyod ng mga adhikain ng kapwa mamamayan at sa pagtugon sa mga pangangailangan ng lipunan. Katuwang sila sa pagtuklas sa mga larangan ng agham at medisina. Kapanalig sila sa pagpapairal ng batas, karapatan at katarungan para sa lahat. Kabahagi sila sa paglilingkod sa bayan at sa pagpapanatili ng demokrasyang Pilipino. Sa paglipas ng panahon, hindi nagmaliw ang kanilang pag-ibig sa ating inang bayan. Mga kababayan, ito ang alay ng mga kababaihang Pilipino para sa bayan. Tumayo po tayong lahat at sabay-sabay nating awitin ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Ayang magiging dala sa silanganan, alam ng puso sa liit ay buhay. Ang hiniram, gulat na ng magiging sa manlulupi. Di ka masisingil sa lahat ng loob sa silang at sa lalim mong baba. Naginanang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng patawat mo'y tagumpay na namiligid. Ang inuwing at araw na kailan pa malimalig. Parang araw ng 100% buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Ang higaya ng pagpay magkakamit, ang mga tay ng dahil sa'yo.
Welcome again, everyone. And now let me introduce the host of today's webinar, who will also give the welcome remarks. Ms. Monette Iturralde Hamlin is founder and president of 30-year-old award-winning Team Asia, an integrated marketing communications firm that brings brands to the next level experience through integrated marketing, events, PR, creative, and digital services. Monette concurrently serves as chairperson of Hopkins International Partners Incorporated, president of the Government Academy Industry Network, and VP Conventions of the Philippine Association of Convention or Exhibition Organizers and Suppliers. She served on the Philippine Tourism Promotions Board for 3 years, representing the meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibitions sector. She recently ended her 2-year term as chairwoman of the Women's Business Council Philippines, Women Biz PH, and now serves as a trustee. A sought-after speaker, trainer, business consultant, and author, Ms. Monette completed AB Psychology at College of the Holy Spirit, graduating summa cum laude, MBM with distinction at Asian Institute of Management, and is a fellow of Institute of Corporate Directors. Let us all give a warm welcome to Ms. Maria Montserrat Monette Iturralde Hamlin.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in today's event that we have been excitedly preparing for quite some time now. You may be interested how the idea of this event came about. This actually was late last year when I had a quick powwow with some friends of mine, Chituan and Boots Garcia, and we were discussing that it's so important to have boards actually in place and to understand the roles of the board as a collegial body. But then we got to talking that there was so much more that needed to be done. And just a quick flashback, when the pandemic started, I was encouraged by my friends to actually take the PDP course, that's the Professional Directors Program course of the Institute of Corporate Directors. You see, for more than 20 years, I've been part of different boards, whether that's a homeowners association, a school alumni board, the tourism promotions board, the Women's Business Council, and many other boards. But I had never actually really undergone a formal course to try to understand what it was. And I said, high time, Monette, Try to find out. You see, Team Asia is a family-owned corporation. I set it up 30 years ago, and we don't really have a working board, a formal board. And so with that course, I began to understand now this is what is important. So after Chit and I and Woods discuss on the need for more people to understand what corporate governance is and what are the principles behind it, that's why this event came about. So we're very happy, very honored to partner with the Institute of Corporate Directors Philippines, which is an organization dedicated to building better boards and raising the level of the country's corporate governance policy, as well as practice to world-class standards. It's really interesting that this is a society of learned people, over 400 professionals, I understand, from different groups like private, publicly listed corporations, government-owned or controlled corporations, family business-owned entities, nonprofit organizations, foundations, and SMEs. The thing is, all of this need good corporate governance. But the other hat that I wear is that of the Women's Business Council, where I am immediate past chair. And you see, for the past 25 years, Women's Business Council has served as the voice of women in business and commerce, providing a platform for government partners like DTI, as well as the Philippine Commission on Women, on having a deeper understanding of what are the issues that are confronting women in business, and to gather inputs that can be placed into helpful government policies. Now, why is that possible? It's possible because the members of Women's Business Council are corporate owners or executive women professionals deeply entrenched in business. They understand the unique challenges that face women in the workplace and in their business, and so can speak from the heart on what are the challenges and solutions that can be done to solve them. So these two organizations have banded together to present to you today's event. And I am so excited because in designing this event, we are bringing together big forces, not just ICD experts on the ICD side, who many of them are also members of Women's Business Council, but we also have women leaders from the Women's Business Council, and they're going to be talking in very informal fireside chats so that people can understand what really is good corporate governance. And we are going to inject the gender lens. Why? Because this is Women's Month. And so it's so important that we recognize that women are a veritable force for business, for society. And without women, hey, what's going to happen to the Philippines and to the world, right? Okay, so in that case, I'm not going to take up too much time. I'd like to get this thing on the road as soon as possible. And so before we start, while everyone still looks fresh with makeup on and lipstick on, we're going to have a family photo. So kindly turn on all of your videos so that our very capable ICD staff can take the photo. So who's doing it? Is that Sora? Take it away, darling.
Thank you so much, Miss Manette, for those inspiring words. We will now take a commemorative group photo before we proceed with the program. Just a reminder, by participating in the group photo, you are agreeing to have the photo publicly posted. So may I invite all the speakers and panelists to please open your cameras. We will spotlight you everyone in a moment. So let's just wait for a while. Also present is Ms. Helen de Guzman, ICD's Board Diversity and Inclusion Committee Chairman. So we recognize you, ma'am, for today. So an ICD staff will be spotlighting the speakers. Everyone, please hold on. We're just waiting. And may we ask everyone to please smile. Maybe hold your smiles for at least 10 seconds. All right. We'll take the photo in 3, 2, 1. Another one. Another photo. Please smile in 3, 2, 1. All right. And last one for a safety shot, please. Hold your smiles in 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you so much. I now pass the floor to Miss Manette.
Many thanks for that. We Filipinos, we love photos. So that's the reason why it's so important to capture this moment. So I hope you don't mind. So let's go now. We're going to have the first part of our program. And I am like really over the top to be able to introduce this gentleman to you. I first met him many, many years ago at the Institute of Solidarity in Action, where I learned all about governance at the time. But let me just introduce him formally. His name is Ricardo Nicanor Jacinto, FICD. I had to ask, what does FICD? So that's the Fellow of the Institute of Corporate Directors. He is a trustee of ICD and the Judicial Reform Initiative. He served as CEO of ICD from 2013 to 2017, and he sits on the boards of several nonprofit companies, two of which are publicly listed. Ricky is also a professional lecturer, MBA program, at the Virata College of Business Administration, Bonifacio Global City Campus of the University of the Philippines. He graduated magna cum laude from the University of the Philippines BS Business Economics program in 1982. He received his master's in business administration from the Harvard Business School in 1986. And here to start and situate us all in this topic of corporate governance, let me turn over the floor to Ricky. Ricky, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Monette, and all my friends at Women Business for inviting me. Boots, Chiki, Helen, Chit, too many to name. I'm very fortunate to know all of you. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to be invited to speak to you today at this very important conference and workshop. So, they've asked me to speak about what corporate governance is and why it's important. If you Google the definition of the term, you will get 2.38 billion results. But let's just focus on the three most important, in my mind, about corporate governance. And so if you allow me to share the screen right now. Okay, I hope all of you can see it. The G30 group of nations calls it the system by which companies are directed and controlled. Our Securities and Exchange Commission defines the term as the system of stewardship and control to guide organizations in fulfilling their long-term economic, moral, legal, and social obligations towards their shareholders, members, and other stakeholders. And the Institute of Corporate Directors, which you know by now, a nonprofit which promotes it, and where I serve as trustee, calls it the work done by a company's board of directors acting collegially. So many of you will have no doubt noticed over the past years that the regulators of the industries where most of you operate, the SEC, the BSP, the Insurance Commission, the Governance Commission for GOCCs, to name a few, have increasingly emphasized the importance of good corporate governance for the companies that they regulate. Many companies, especially the largest and most successful ones in the country, have embraced it wholeheartedly. And you've also probably heard by now that global institutional investors such as BlackRock, State Street, and other titans of the world's capital markets say that good corporate governance, which is the G in the acronym ESG, by the way, is fast becoming a prerequisite for any investment that they make. Clearly, corporate governance matters to these groups. But what I'd like to know and also help you with today is to find out whether corporate governance matters to you. So I'd like to take, with your help, a quick poll of the 156 participants today. Please indicate, Sora, would you mind posting the first question? Please indicate whether you agree with the statement. Corporate governance, using any of the three definitions I just flashed, is critical to the success of my business? Please pick one answer. And we'll give you a couple of seconds to answer that. Sora, do we have the results? Yes, you can just show me whatever we have right now. Great, fantastic. I mean, this is really surprising. I wasn't sure whether some people would be hesitant about the role of corporate governance in this to their businesses would be. All right. So, I mean, clearly, thank you, Sora, you can close it. Clearly, I'm preaching to the choir, right? But maybe you come across people who would ask you, why is it so important? And maybe some of you struggle to answer that question. So let me help you out, okay? And let me try to explain why corporate governance is important in the context of my experience these past 4 decades. And yes, that was a grade school picture you saw of me on the first slide. But anyway, my professional career began in June of 1982. I had just graduated from college, and I was lucky enough to be picked to join the management training program of a very prestigious investment house in Makati. Part of the company's prestige derived from the fact that it counted Chase Manhattan Bank, and that's a name that baby boomers will probably remember, but Chase Manhattan Bank and Philam Life as its shareholders. At the time I joined, the chairman of the company was trying to convince these shareholders to back his plan to grow the company. Unfortunately, they did not agree with his approach. So sometime in July of 1983, if my memory serves me right, he announced to all of us that he had engineered a buyout of the shareholders to a group led by a cabinet secretary of the Marcos government. I'll never forget the cocktail event where our chairman proudly introduced the cabinet secretary as the company's new owners to our clients. By all measures, the event was a great success. A few weeks later, however, Ninoy Aquino was assassinated. And overnight, just like that, we lost all our deposits as investors pulled out their money from the company. I distinctly remember that we had to borrow overnight money on the money market at rates as high as 40% per annum just to square our market positions and stay solvent. And pretty soon, other banks stopped lending to us, no matter that we were willing to pay any rate that they would quote us. In May of 1984, my boss took me aside and told me, Ricky, unfortunately, because of our financial situation, we have to let you go. I was fortunate that by that time I had decided to pursue graduate studies abroad, so I wasn't too much worried about the news. But many of my friends and colleagues lost their jobs at the time when the economy was in a tailspin and didn't have any safety net to catch them. It took them many years to recover from that financial and emotional setback. What happened to me and the company was something that corporate governance calls reputational risk, or an event where no one wants to do business with a company because of its image or reputation. The Russians are finding that out these days. So one of the reasons why I personally believe that corporate governance should matter to us is because of its effect on employees' lives. Time for another Zoom poll. Sora, can you fire it up? How many of you have ever lost your job because the company you worked for went out of business? Sora, can we see the results, please? Okay, so 13 of you, unfortunately, underwent the same experience as mine. And for those of you who voted no, I hope you never have to experience that in your lifetime. Okay? Thank you, Sora. You can close it. So companies that practice good corporate governance consider the impact of reputational risk along with many other types of risks on their business and seek to mitigate those that matter the most. Here's another story. When I came back to the Philippines after graduate school, I went to work for a local bank. A few years after I joined the company, a very pretty young girl from fresh out of an all-girls college was hired. Siyempre, crush siya ng mga binata at palagi silang nag-aagawan na makatabi siya sa canteen kapag lunchtime. I remember that during one beach excursion, company beach excursion, I came across a bunch of these young guys who had such long faces, you'd think they crashed their cars and would never have another cool ride again. And when I asked them, oh, bakit ganun ang itsura ninyo? You know, almost comically and unanimously, they all pointed to the sea behind me. And when I turned around to look, I saw one of our big bosses paddling in the water beside her. A few months afterwards, this young girl left the company. And I found out later that she did so because she was pregnant with the boss's child. They subsequently got married and, as far as I know, are still together. I hope you don't think that I'm moralizing here, because I believe that consenting adults should have a right to do whatever they want to do as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. But here's the thing. Given today's Me Too movement, I wonder whether things would have turned out differently had the policy been in place at our company where women could speak out in situations when men with power tried to take advantage of their authority over them. So let's have another Zoom poll. Sora, can you fire it up? How many of you have ever witnessed or been a victim of sexual harassment in the workplace? Okay, Sora, can we see the results? Wow. Okay. Okay. I mean, about 1/3 of you. And you know, we have about 161 participants. So I'm assuming the other ones didn't get to vote, but you know, if trends say anything, that's around 50+ of you have witnessed or been victims of sexual harassment. So that's, you know, again, for those of you who said no, you're very fortunate. For those of you who have said yes, you know, I guess that's an indication of how deep this problem is in our corporate worlds. Thank you, Sora. Diversity, equality, and inclusion is an important issue in corporate governance. Well-governed companies seek to create work environments where the dignity of individuals, no matter their gender, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, or other aspects of their identity, is recognized, valued, and protected. Corporate governance can also help companies do the right things even when conventional wisdom dictates otherwise. I once sat on a board of a real estate holding company which owned a piece of property that was being leased to a multinational for its manufacturing operations. At the time that I joined the board, the lease, which had been in effect for almost half a century, was about to be terminated because the multinational was in the process of closing its plant in the Philippines and consolidating all of its manufacturing operations to China. Our board decided that once the multinational had completed the demolition of its plant and turned over the property back to the real estate holding company, it would sell the land to take advantage of the good property market that was prevailing at the time. When I suggested that we get a certification from the multinational that the site was free of any chemical contaminants so that we could get a better price for the property from potential buyers, the board readily agreed. A few months later, however, we were advised that there were large quantities of a chemical called perchloroethylene, or PCE, on the property, and that this could have been seeping into the water table beneath the property. PCE is a chemical solvent that is used to, among others, clean machines and dry clean clothes. It's also used in paint strippers, spot removers, and other solvent-based household products. Unfortunately, long-term exposure to PCE, even at low doses, can lead to permanent harm, including loss of memory and damage to the central nervous system. According to the US National Toxicology Program, PCE may be reasonably anticipated as a human carcinogen. Our board decided to go back to the multinational and share this information with it. We hoped that we would get some help from it to deal with the problem, especially since there were many residential communities around the plant site that had sprouted up over the years and were drawing all their water from deep wells because the water utilities had not yet extended their service into the area. Can you guess what its reaction was? I'm sure many of you probably think the multinational stonewalled us. Well, far from it. Without argument, without delay, it decided to immediately fix the problem and foot the entire bill for doing so, even if the full cost at that time could not be determined. To do so, it engaged a DNR-accredited special contractor to excavate and dispose of the PCE. By the way, they encased it in lahar, and threw it in a pit beside Pinatubo. But they did that under the supervision of the LGU. And it provided safe drinking water for almost a year to all residents within a kilometer-wide radius of the site until the water utility was able to bring in a special line, which the multinational also paid for, into the area to replace water drawn from the deep wells. If I recall correctly, in the year 2000 or thereabouts, the multinational spent over $3 million to fix the problem. I really respect the multinational and its officers for doing the right thing. And I'm pretty sure that the communities in the area did so as well. It did so, the multinational did so, because the country of its home base employs a corporate governance code where companies are expected to do the right thing regardless of cost, and in fact, even penalizes them for failing to do so. So here's my last question for today's Zoom polls. How many of you have ever worked for a company? Sora, please. How many of you have ever worked for a company that always did the right thing, clean up after itself, pay the right taxes, refused to pay a bribe, etc., regardless of the cost or consequences? Okay, Sora, please share the results. Wow, really, iba talaga. This group is really so fortunate, no? Over almost 70% are lucky enough to have worked in a company that did the right thing. Okay, so again, you're very lucky, and I can see why many of you are champions of corporate governance. Now, I'm sure that some of you are saying, yeah, Ricky, those are great stories, but I belong to a SME or a nonprofit that can't afford corporate governance. Para sa mga malalaking kumpanya lang yan. Well, let me share with you a video which, although it takes place in the United States almost 8 years ago, is something that I'm sure all of us, whether we work in a large or small company, a privately held or publicly listed or nonprofit, can relate to: a family and founder dispute. Okay, so give me a second just to go to the...
Now to an unusual supermarket strike. It's not about wages or benefits. Grocery workers are fuming about the firing of their boss. Even more surprising, who gave him the pink slip? Michael Rosenfeld of our Boston station, WBZ, is outside Market Basket headquarters in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. That's where things could come to a head today. Michael Rosenfeld, good morning to you.
Hi, Gail. Good morning to you. Arthur T. Demoulas was the president of Market Basket for 6 years, but last month he was fired by the board of directors. Employees and customers alike have rallied to his defense, but so far the board is sticking by its decision. It's the rallying cry of Market Basket employees, thousands refusing to work until the former president they call RDT is reinstated.
I was trained to be loyal. I've been with the company for 13 years. You know, it's been my life.
For more than a century, Market Basket had been a family-run company, albeit one embroiled in a 20-year feud. The Demoulas family fought over money and control, both in and out of court, and once with a fistfight. But in June, tensions boiled over. President Arthur T. Demoulas was fired by his cousin, Arthur S. Demoulas, who runs the Market Basket board. In a statement, the company said the move would help to, quote, maximize its potential and pave the way for continued success in the future. Shortly after, protests erupted and have continued every week since. Instead of stocking grocery aisles, current and former employees are spending hours on picket lines. Joe Schmidt was a Market Basket manager for 27 years. He is one of 8 employees fired by the grocery chain after helping to spearhead the protests. They are planning to sue the company.
I know at the end of the day, I did the right thing. I know I can look my children in the eye and tell them, hey, I took a stand for something.
There are 71 Market Basket stores in 3 Northeast states. Last year, they reported more than $4 billion in revenue. But today, customers are greeted with empty shelves because even the truck drivers who deliver groceries have gone on strike.
We're not receiving any orders, not doing any, taking in any deliveries till after Demoulas is put back in his full status as CEO.
Now, the Market Basket board is urging employees back to work. Last week, the company announced a job fair to replace absent employees who don't return by today and said, quote, any associate that wants to return will be welcomed and not penalized. One analyst estimates that Market Basket is losing about $10 million a day because of these protests. Another major rally is expected tomorrow, and organizers are expecting more than 10,000 people. Charlie?
Okay, so again, settling intercompany disputes, succession planning, continuity of leadership. These are challenges that all types of companies and organizations face. And whether you're profit-oriented or not, whatever industry sector you are, if a corporate board or leadership fails to pay attention to these matters, no, I would even rephrase that, give it critical importance and priority, then like what you saw in the video, you could inadvertently end up destroying the very institution that you're supposed to protect and grow. So let me make one important caveat, and I'm close to the end of my short speech. Corporate governance is not a silver bullet that will solve all of your business problems. Nor is it a guarantee that businesses will not fail or go bankrupt. But as the definitions that I mentioned earlier remind us, it's a structured way for directors and managers of a company to look at the issues that can most affect them in a holistic way and bring these to the table for discussion. It also provides a body of knowledge where you can access best practices for navigating and hopefully resolving these issues. You and your boards still have to do the heavy lifting. At worst, a corporate governance code will improve your chances of survival. At best, it can help your company, your employees, your managers realize their full potential. So let me end this session with one more story about corporate governance. And it's not my story. It's the story I heard from, let me share, Cardinal Tagle. And for me, in many ways, it's the best explanation for why we need corporate governance. So Cardinal Tagle was addressing a group of businessmen, people, and he said he was being asked to talk about corporate governance. And he said, what do I know about corporate governance? My expertise is the spiritual world, not the temporal world, or much less the business world. But while he was thinking about what to say, his memory flashed back to something, an experience he had as a young priest. And he was saying that he was very close to a family at that time. And the parents of the family came to him and said one day, we have a problem with our daughter, our teenage daughter. Whatever we try, we can't get through to her. Pasaway talaga. So they asked him, can you please talk to her and try to get through to her? Which of course he said yes. Now, after he spoke to this teenage girl, he was very surprised because she came back at him very angrily and said, everything you adults are telling me is all BS. I can't believe anything that comes from your mouths. And so Cardinal Tagle said, we live today, and I think, he mentioned this several years ago, but I think it's worse now. We live today in a society where we don't trust anything. There's trust. I mean, Eon has a great trust poll, but if you look at every sector, church, media, government, business, NGOs, trust has gone down. And we're talking about 2019. Okay? You can only imagine what would have happened between then and now. But Cardinal Tagle said, can you imagine living permanently in a world where people don't trust you? Where you can't trust anything anybody says. He said, that's toxic. And he went, corporate governance at the end is supposed to engender trust in an organization. Because no one can function in a company, much less a family, a community, or a society where we always have to look over our shoulder. So again, thank you very much for your time and your kind attention. And Monette, thank you, and enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone.
Thank you very, very much, Ricky. That was a fantastic introduction of good corporate governance and why it is so important, why everybody needs it. While you were doing your pause, I was checking, okay, violence against women, check. Lost my job, check. I think you were talking about all of my experiences, why we need good corporate governance. Okay, so what will happen next is we're going to have 4 very informal, interesting fireside chats where we will tackle at each fireside chat a couple of the principles for corporate governance. So let's begin with our first group. And the first group will be talking about independence and fairness. Let me first introduce our panelists. First, we have Chiqui Escarial Go. She is the CEO and Chief Behavioral Strategist of Mann Smith and Fielders, Inc., a 30-year-old advocacy-based marketing and sales strategy and innovation training and consulting company. As a marketing anthropologist, Chiki is guided by the intersectionality of the various disciplines that she engages in and is a proponent of using the social sciences in business. She is also the immediate past chair of the Women's Business Council. Our second speaker is Rosemary Bosch Ong. Rosemary is an experienced leader with expertise in marketing, administration, and operations. As the SEVP and Chief Operating Officer of Wilcon Depot, she creates aggressive strategies that deliver consistent business growth. She also currently serves as president of the Philippine Retailers Association, and she is a regular columnist of the Philippine Star. She was awarded the International Women's Entrepreneurial Challenge Award 2018 for her strong and successful entrepreneurial business path in the male-dominated retail construction industry. Okay, so our two panelists, we have Chiki and we have Rose. Both of them are coming from a family business. However, Chiki is going to share her thoughts as a board member of medium-sized family businesses, whereas Rosemary will bring the perspective of a board member of a family-owned but publicly listed company. So please take note, we have an ICG expert. This time it's Chiki, and we have Rose. Chiki, let me first ask you, could you give us an idea of what do we mean by the principles of independence and fairness?
Thank you, Monette. Hi, Rosemary and Ricky. That was an amazing first talk. No, I'd just like to connect that first, no, to the two values that he did mention about doing the right things in corporate governance, and simply, no, if you think about it, it's really doing the right things and doing things right. No, and it starts with, and I'd like to put again the intersectionality of gender. It's really putting the right members of the board in place accordingly, in which diversity is necessary because of the different perspectives, and that means inclusion. Now, of course, there are different kinds of diversity, not just gender, but for our purposes, let's put it into gender. Now, it's very different how women come in and express independence and fairness, maybe because independence is seen as like a masculine trait, right? And maybe fairness is more neutral, making again the gender issue invisible. You know, so these are the perspectives that come in when I talk about these values now, because as you mentioned, I'm a marketing anthropologist. But if you talk about independence now, no, I would like to put it in the context of within the board. How do you operate as an independent board member? I would say really that it all boils down to freedom from any conflict of interest, because you want to be able to ask the hard questions, you know, for the benefit of the corporation. And there are relationships or connections or even interests that might hinder that. And I was talking to Ricky earlier, and we were talking about Old Boys Club is real. It still exists, and that's why the issue of diversity might be an issue for some certain boards, because maybe it's not associated, independence, for example, is not associated with women. And there is such a thing, again, anthropologically, as an in-group and an out-group. No? And that's a social influence of, and that will affect, again, independence. No? Maybe later on, I'll talk about fairness, or do you want me to express fairness now?
Wag muna, Chiki. I think I'd like to touch, because you talked about gender and being an all-boys club. You know, because Rosemary is in an industry that's male-dominated. In fact, I was there yesterday at Wilcon trying to buy roof shingles. Rosemary, how can a female remain independent in a male-dominated industries like yours? Like, could you give us an idea of what competencies or skills you have to bring to this board? No? Tell us.
Okay. Actually, to be a woman leader or to be part of a board, no, let's say Wilcon or any other board, no, it is fulfilling at the same time challenging, because anecdotally, no, women has to exert more effort. Diba? You have to work twice as hard to get to claim a space, diba? And speak out, no. So I think although gender diversity is good for the organization, no, but the gender disparity is always an issue, especially in this patriarchal society, diba? Wherein you continue to honor and follow traditional roles of men and women. However, in my case kasi, parang anecdotally, I had an experience, no, in one of the, like you, Monette, you mentioned that you've been part of the board of many associations, no, whether it's homeowner, whether it's, industry, no. I'm sure, PCA, I'll mention na, no, Old Boys Club talaga yan. I think that time I was part of the board, I was the only female, di ba? So my personal experience, parang I've experienced that they're trying to undermine your capability. So I guess for us women, no, even if you have the competency, I'm sure to be part of a board, di ba, you have to merit that position. And with merit, there's no gender, di ba? So you have to, di ba, parang you have to show that you're competent in the sense that you can deliver what's asked for you, no? So what happened is that what I did, I stood my ground, no? Kasi many of us, women, matatalino naman talaga, magagaling. But if you're timid and you don't know how to voice out, talagang, they will eat you, di ba? So like in my case, no, but I'm very lucky, I would say, at Wilcon kasi, di ba, we only got listed in 2017. That was very short, pa lang, no? So 5 years pa lang kaming listed as a company, no? But then, ang experience ko naman, para I was able to break the seal because I got the support of Mr. Berus. Very, very supportive naman, di ba? Parang he look at you not as yung facade mo as a woman, but basically on what you can deliver and what you can, no? You mentioned about the competence. Siyempre, by exerting extra effort, di ba? You have to be woman of stature, of excellence, di ba? You know how to deliver what is asked of you or what is expected of you, no? And then of course, I think yung to self-improvement, that's one also. Even at my age, 2017 when 2007 when I took my MBA, and it was like, in my 40s na at that time. And I'm already in terms of position. I mean, I did not take it because of brand equity or something, but basically because I wanted to learn. So yung kwan mo for self-improvement, di ba, for learning, I think that's one of the qualities that, that will make a woman stand out in a diverse group, in a diverse board, I would say.
Thanks, Rosemary. Actually that's the difficulty, is speaking up and being heard. Because many times women, we, sort of shortchange ourselves. We think, whatever will I say, will they laugh at me, or will they think I'm foolish, or, they question my competence. So we need to learn how to speak up. Now, what's interesting in the two of you is you're coming from family businesses, di ba? Chiki, sa'yo maraming family businesses, not just one, but they're smaller. But could you tell us the dynamics of this independence in a smaller family business?
Let me just say, I actually wanted to tell Rosemary, you took it 2007 and 40 years
Yeah.
old. I thought you were just 40. Yeah.
Anyway,
anyway, we own the business, so it's in our DNA to be very independent, no? So I think the challenge here actually is, since we're educators and we teach it, we're very aware of the concept of governance. Even when we teach entrepreneurship, we have a shareholders agreement, it's there. But what I want to say is, Monette, I've actually been a member of all male-dominated boards like Rosemary, and I have experienced not being heard and really not listened to. So mali ba yung approach ko? There was actually a student that I had whose boss in Germany told her, you have the best ideas, but you come in too soon. So people, when they're arguing and everything, you come in too soon with a brilliant idea, they just shut you down. So what she does is doodle the first 2 meetings, and then when they're all exhausted, not being able to come up with a solution, then she comes up with a solution. And everybody now has to listen to her because they've exhausted their ideas. So that's a technique, right? But I've also been experiencing some challenges with an all-female board. So it's the same about being excluded. No, I want to go back to that talaga because the Old Boys Club hinders that issue about independence. No? I would like to mention my role in St. Paul, Pasig and Tuguegarao, Philippines, because now here's a perfect example of being an outsider. No? So if you're an insider, you're part of the old boys club. But if you're an outsider, for the longest time, I was the only non-academe and non-religious. Okay, bagamat pwede naman ako maging madre. Um, non-religious. But I also came in wearing two other hats, no? Parent and alumna. But there was a third hat that was more important when I engaged with the academe and the religious, which was I had the perspective of a future employer of their students, which means I knew the competencies needed. Again, as a trainer of Mansmith and Fielders, I knew the competencies needed that had to be included in the curriculum. So sometimes it could work that way. No? If you have that kind of situation, but you're so different from everybody else, no? You either wait until people get exhausted arguing about the issue, or you show your value as because that's what members of the board do, create value for the organization.
I love this concept of being inside and then outside the kulambo because they're really different dynamics. But Rosemary, can you tell us what kind of qualities did you bring to the table as a woman in this male-dominated industry that you are in that you think was able to, make them listen to you?
I think yung confidence mo, I think that's very important. You have to build that through time, no? But of course, yun nga, you have to equip yourself, no? You have to continually develop yourself, di ba? And of course, I guess one quality is that you have to be assertive. You should, you have to be assertive. But yung aggressive naman, sometimes it's a negative it's also di ba? And you should know how to listen also, di ba? It's not always, women. Kasi sometimes, advantage than being a woman. Kasi palagi sinasabi, sige, ladies first, no? Just recently lang, I was, I presided the board because I'm president of PRA, no? And they're all male. It was only me and another female, board member was there, no? So, syempre tayo, we're very passionate, di ba? So, with what we do. And I think they would appreciate pagka naramdaman naman nila na you mean well talaga, you're passionate. And talaga, I think one of the qualities talaga of women that men, excuse me, no, I'm not saying naman na we're more hardworking than men. Parang mas hardworking tayo di ba? Mas hardworking on women, especially in my industry kasi service-oriented, di ba? It's very natural for women to be very doting mothers, di ba? Parang ganon. And very service-oriented, no? Especially, if you're a member of the board or if you're a leader of the company, syempre you have to take on bigger roles, And I think that's the dynamics of a woman talaga because she can take bigger roles, not just, being a mother or being a housemaker, but basically also in business, right? So I think that's one of the best qualities that women has. But I'm not saying naman that we're greater than men. I'm also saying that we're not inferior or lesser than them. So parang equal lang regardless of gender. Kasi nga, yung merit and competence and capability, it's genderless naman whether you're man or woman, di ba? So I remember it was you who mentioned, I think in one of our meetings, you said na, I want to see in the future that there's no women leader. We're all leaders here, no? Men or women alike, di ba? We're all the same, parang ganun.
That's right. I did mention that. And that's where we want to bring this conversation. Now, we are all the same. Ang bilis ng oras, that 15 minutes just went so fast. There is a question on the chat. As last, can we just tackle that? Can you comment on women's lack of confidence? This is from Stephanie Franco. Does having a supportive father contribute?
I can answer that. Yes, research has shown the powerful role of the father. And that was actually shared in one conference of women that I went to. Father should be the best example of men for their daughters.
I love that. Developing the daughters is really on the shoulders, not just of the mother, but the father as well. Yeah. So we have to end this particular fireside chat. Don't worry, participants. We will have an open forum later where you can ask the questions. But for now, we're going to proceed to the next one. Many thanks, Chicky. Many thanks, Rosemary. Galing nyo talaga. Okay. So now we're going to the next of our fireside chats. And this one is now going to talk about, hold on. So we are going to be on a accountability, transparency, and openness. Okay, accountability, transparency, and openness. And for this, let me just introduce our two speakers. First, we have Chit Juan, Pasita Juan, who has been an ICD fellow since 2006. She has joined private companies as well as NGOs as a director since 2008. She served 3 terms in the biggest endowment fund NGO, that's the Peace and Equity Foundation, Inc., and she was also a member of its finance committee. Today, she is an independent director of a publicly listed company called Citicorp. I don't know how to pronounce it, Chit, REITba? Aligned, REIT, okay.
Just REIT.
Aligned, just REIT. Aligned with her advocacies in sustainability and the environment. Now, for the longest time, I've known Chit to be the environment guru. She's a founder of the Next Gen Organization of Women Corporate Directors called Now CD, and was chair of the Women's Business Council of the Philippines from 2014 to 2018. Calling onto the virtual stage as well is another great friend of mine, Maricel Narciso. Maricel is a 30-year marketing veteran schooled by 2 pedigreed consumer good companies, PepsiCo and Unilever. She became the first Filipino general manager of PepsiCo Philippines, where she led a diverse team that bagged numerous global awards for excellent business performance and social purpose programs. Today, she is a corporate director as well as investor in several small women-owned and women-led companies that deal with education, with AI and privacy ethics, and with medical laboratory services. And listen to this, she serves as a member of the Philippine Navy Board of Advisors, where she co-chairs its Strategic Communications Committee and also sits on the Board of Trustees of the newly launched Now CD, which Chit is part of as well. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about accountability, transparency, and disclosure. So I would like to first pass the baton to Chit as the ICD experts. Chit, what do these principles mean?
Hello. Okay, we shall, Ricky made a very good, ang ganda ng examples, no? Ricky gave very, very good examples that touched on a lot of governance principles. But for us, it's transparency, and really we are always mindful if there's conflict of interest. We are always mindful that, everything is transparency and also disclosure, no? The openness. And then accountability is really, I have some Filipino sayings, but really when you say accountability, you have to be answerable for whatever decisions you make. And probably some other examples or short definitions of accountability, while nauna yung examples ni Ricky, no? We should also look at accountability of management and the accountability of the board. Because the board can give you the direction, but the management at the end of the day is the one executing it, right? So, so much so that, for example, even in an NGO, even in an organization, you could be the president, you're executing, but you have to ask the chair. You have to ask the others, because you are all accountable, right? It cannot be, I think this is the best way to do it, and you do a workaround, etc. But there are matters that you have to pass by the board, which you cannot just do it as a matter of well, I can make decisions. So let's be careful. I might take up a lot of time, Monet. You have to cut us because Maricel and I are prepared for 2 hours.
Punta muna tayo kay Maricel kasi
yeah.
Sabi ko sa'yo, very interesting what she's part of right now. Philippine Navy. Oh my goodness, with all of these issues in the China Sea.
Yeah.
What are we going, what's your role there? Is it
First,
difficult?
let me say I'm really, really proud that I was invited to be part of the Philippine Navy. And just so that you know, so I sit in the Board of Advisors of the Philippine Navy. We are 3 women out of the 8 members of the board of advisors. So that's a good thing. We're almost 40%. Okay. So it's nice. Anyway, so this Navy board is made up of multi-sectoral people. Okay. So not in the Navy. And what we do at the heart of the Navy board's work is really centered around what they call a sale plan. The Navy has a sale plan, and that sale plan has it captures the Navy's vision, mission, objectives, and it's really about how the Navy is trying to modernize and be multi-capable. Because unless the Navy is more modern and multi-capable, we won't be able to deliver the promise to protect our seas and secure our future as one of the biggest maritime nations in the world. No, here's the amazing thing, Monette. The SEAL plan uses a framework of a strategy map because the Navy also trained under ICD. Okay, and what they did was that strategy map, they broke it down into objectives, and they have what they call a balanced scorecard. Now, this balanced scorecard, which we all learned in the professional development program of ICD, this balanced scorecard starts at the top. So the flag officer in command, who is the highest ranking officer, parang 3-star general siya, he has this balanced scorecard, which is then broken down by objective with programs, initiatives that are tracked quarterly. This FOIC, okay, or Flag Officer in Command's balanced scorecard is then cascaded and translated into relevant breakups so that it is cascaded to the rear admirals, commodores, captains, commanders, lieutenant commanders, blah, 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 all the way down to the ensign level. So it's all across the 25,000 active personnel. I really am amazed by that. Kasi when you have a balanced scorecard, it is actually a disciplined performance management tool that ensures the Navy is accountable in achieving their SAIL plan, their vision. And I think that's really admirable.
Thanks for that. You know, this balanced scorecard is really a great tool for all organizations, even Team Asia. We may be small, family-owned, but we've been having this balanced scorecard for years. And it makes it very clear to everyone in the organization what's your role, where you're going, and what you're accountable for.
Now, when you see that you're not hitting the targets, the balanced scorecard, the role of the board, okay, is really to help unlock those issues so that together you can achieve the objectives, di ba?
Tama. Very good. You know, that's the Navy, no? But both of you have great experience in family businesses. And I know si Chit, the first time I met you, that was Figaro, di ba, Chit? So tell us.
You know,
in business na. Sige.
Thank you. Because as I was telling Maricel when we were comparing notes for this chat, I was only 18 and my father would let me sit in our family board. So I had that consciousness early on because at 18 you can sign and it's not in trust for anymore. So I said, sit there and learn. You know, but when he passed on, I was only 24. My brother and I got independent directors. And I'm so happy that this family corporation is now 52 years old. Okay, so when my father passed, it wasn't even, I mean, you can do the math, no? But it's now a 52-year-old company. But from independent directors, you know, you have to get people who will not just say yes to you. If you just want yes, men and women, then they're what you call nominees. You just sign here and then let me do it. No? But I think companies that are sustainable, and of course, sustainable equals profitable because you cannot be sustainable if you're not profitable. So for companies to be sustainable, you have to get those guys who can tell you, no, don't do that. You know, and sometimes in family corporations, if it's not the father or the mother, it's the kuya or the ate. Diba? There's that hierarchy because we Filipinos are like that. We submit to ate and kuya. But sometimes, you know, like they can tell you, hey, I'm the youngest. So I had to be heard. You know, I had to I may be the youngest, but I have an opinion too. So you ask questions and you don't just just expect to say yes all the time.
That's very, very interesting. It's actually, how do you make yourself heard, diba? Which also ties into the earlier discussion. Now, Sel, you have a family-owned business as well. Can
Yeah.
you share what your experience is for accountability and transparency there?
I'm a little luckier because I'm the ate, okay? So,
Baliktad.
but so medyo
I'm the
baliktad.
youngest. Oh.
Exactly. But the thing is, my sister, my younger sister, runs her school, which has a 50+ year legacy because my mom started it in the 60s. But she happily chose to pick up that work and lead the school. Now, when the pandemic hit, okay, in March 2020, so we have a 50-year history of face-to-face learning, etc., etc. Suddenly, the pandemic hit, and then, we didn't know what hit us, okay? It was really chaotic because suddenly we weren't able to teach face-to-face, and we needed to leapfrog into transforming into remote online learning, which no one knew about. Worse, we had, because the school year suddenly stopped, no? So ang daming uncollected receivables from the previous school year that just got cut short. So that left the school really cash strapped, okay? And we didn't have a choice. We had to let go of staff because without face-to-face classes, we didn't need cleaning and teacher aides anymore. The canteen and clinic had to close, our revenue streams were clipped, and we had the daunting task to build the online platform with no prior experience. Talagang blind leading the blind. So what we did though, after I did the ICD course, okay, which happened before the pandemic, okay, we were able to bring in at least one independent director, okay, and then we started to reshape what the board should be focusing on, and this became really, really instrumental for us in surviving the struggle in this transformation because we chose to be the board chose to be humble and transparent about the school's financial distress, and to be open to our team about how limited our options were. So we were able to negotiate a fair package for the staff we had to let go of, okay, and not get sued. We were thankful the teachers, even if we said, we will need to do a pay cut because we don't have the funds, okay? 80% of them decided to stay. Those who left decided they needed to take care of their kids during the pandemic, okay? So that was okay, but 80% stayed. We terminated our rent, we squeezed out whatever money was left to buy the necessary technology enablers. And 2 months after the pandemic hit, okay, by May, we were able to already reskill and retrain our teachers, okay, because they were willing and we were open. So we were able to road test the transformed curriculum by summer. By June, the teachers had some confidence with the online schooling. And by August, when we reopened the school, it was amazing. At never before done online school we were able to launch. Sabi nga nila, crisis is an accelerant. Okay. And the school survived. The school survived. Thank you. Because we were able to pivot this unbelievable crisis. It really is not easy running a small school, and it's not easy running a family business. But I think the game changer was having a committed school board that provided that strategy, that leadership, and we practice accountability, transparency, and openness to our staff and the people involved with the school. It really was a game changer.
Really helped you was really opening up and what it is as it is, so that parang walang nakatago.
Yeah.
But talking about hiding things, when the board of family organizations, have you had any experience where you are inside a group or outside the group, then they start, having fights? Kasi when we talk about accountability and transparency, it also means that for all the members of the board, you have to be up and about. I mean, and tell the truth, you know things from each other and just create devious plans on how to get your way. You want to share your experiences in this department? Who wants to start? Boots? Boots. Chit muna.
Wow, nami-miss mo na si Boots ah.
Oo nga eh. Mamaya siya.
Alam mo, I think pag ikaw yung out parate, probably you have to reassess, do you really belong in that board? Kasi kung independent director, tapos ina-out ka naman, then you're a token. You know, as an independent, you have to be able to, di ba sabi ng ICD, add value to the board. And that means speaking up. So, yung sinasabi nyo na merong outside the Kulambo and all that, I wouldn't endure that because I think, what am I there for? To collect the per diem, you know? I don't want a board where I cannot be heard. Because how do you add value? You are a statistic because you have a quorum. That's the last thing you would want. So people don't be the token person for a quorum. Diba? Kasi minsan, do we have a quorum, Madam Secretary? Yes, we do. Pero hindi ka naman pinapasalita. So, you know, yeah, go ahead.
Pero sometimes it's hard also in a family board, okay? Kasi I understand the independence, pero sometimes within the family, there are, you know,
Factions.
some siblings that side with this and other siblings that side with that. And, you know, resolving that, because we will be siblings for life. It is very delicate. So I think what we learned, personally, what I learned from the PDP, okay, is really you need to focus on strategy. Let the executives, the management team run it, but you really need to resolve the big issues. And then I had to tell, you know, one little faction who would have side meetings, okay, apart from the board meetings, and they'd agree stuff. They'd say like, no, let's meet in the board so that it's open and transparent. It's hard in a family corporation.
Okay, well, our 15 minutes is up. I could go on and talk to you girls, but we have to go to the next set of principles. Thank you very much, Chit. Thank you, Sel. Stay behind.
Thank you.
We're
Yes.
going to have an open forum later.
Thank you.
Okay, let me introduce our next group. And our next group is going to tackle good board practices, control environment, and board commitment. So we have two lovely ladies joining us. So let me introduce first our CJ expert. Her name is Conchita Chit Manabat. She is the founding trustee and president of the Development Center for Finance. She has deep and varied board experience as executive board member, independent board member, and board member of publicly listed or entities of public interest, regulated entities such as banks and financial, self-regulated organizations or SROs like the exchanges, NGOs, joint ventures, and more. And she brings her experience from many, many different industries to her work. But this is what's interesting. She is the only woman chair of the International Association of Financial Executives Institutes for 2005 and 2006. Now that is a 52-year-old international premier society of finance executives, which Finex is a member for. So that's Chit Manaba. Joining her on this virtual stage for an enchanted session is the Chief Operating Officer of Enchanted Kingdom, Cynthia Romero Mamon. She is an IAAPA certified attractions executive and a multi-awarded inspirational leader. She started her career in IT in Picard and became the president of Sun Microsystems Philippines. She was recognized as one of the 100 most influential Filipinas in the world by the Filipino Women's Network and one of the most powerful women in information technology. She believes in servant leadership and Jesus is her real CEO. She is currently the secretary of the Women's Business Council. Okay, ladies, Chit and Cynthia, can we give the stage first to Chit because Chit has to explain to us the principles of good board practice, control environment, and board commitment. Chit, over to you.
Hi, thank you. Monette. I'm the other Chief M. That's how I usually sign off, Chief M. Well, referring to what Ricky said much earlier, I subscribe to the idea that the underlying principles of the three items that we are to cover, good board practices, board commitment, and control environment, the underlying principles apply to any type of organization, be it multinational, SROs, or self-regulated organization like the exchanges or joint ventures, NGOs, family corporation, or whatever. The differentiation may be in terms of the degree by which they are observed. I can say this with confidence because I've been involved in a number of boards. You can see the white hair that I have, and I've been serving in boards for more than 40 years. Okay, and maybe I'm the oldest among the ladies here. Okay, and having said that, the dynamics of board membership are such that you will learn a lot. No two boards are the same, even if they are in the same industry. Okay, and my guidepost really, I have mentioned it much earlier when we had a chat, is that when I join boards, I always keep in mind that I have no monopoly of knowledge. Okay, especially if you have men in the board. And I have been in boards where I am the lonely woman. Okay, so you have to have humility and let them talk and say they are the best. Let them tell what they know, and then in the end you say your piece. I'm a numbers person, so they cannot contest what I would say. And also, I believe that when you consider board membership, you should have the competence. Okay? You don't embrace a role if you do not have the competence. You have to understand the industry. You have to do your own due diligence on the company. And that's very important. And always keep your integrity intact. Okay? Because if you lose your integrity, you lose everything. Okay? I have the reputation of being too, how do they describe me? I'm very straight. So, but I can understand, and if I cannot take it, I take my leave. But I say, I state my piece. That is very important to me. And I will not announce it. If it's only one person, I see to it that I talk to that person one-on-one, and I pour out. And then I say, well, we're gonna meet again, but now you know me better, and I think I know you a little.
Those are very, very good tips that you have just shared with us, Chiet. No, first of all, to make sure you have humility, to make sure you have the competence, to keep your integrity intact because of your reputation. Because once you lose that, who will want to get you, right? But
Yes.
also this thing about the communication, which is if you have a problem, go straight to the person. Can I just go now to Cynthia kasi? What's interesting when I introduced Cynthia, that she has actually gone through the 3 different groups. She was in government, then she was with a corporation with Sun Microsystems, and now in a fun place called Enchanted Kingdom with your husband, right, Cynthia? So
Yes,
tell
that's
us, in terms of practices or having control and commitment, tell us about your experience.
Okay, you're right, Monette, and I guess I will provide the practical side to what Chit said. I think we're definitely in line with what we're saying. I've had a unique experience of working in 3 different corporate environments, so to speak. I worked at PICARD, that's the Philippine Council for Agricultural Resources Research. It's a council under the Department of Science and Technology. So I did public service for 20 years. For another 21 years, I managed our own entrepreneurial company established by my husband, providing IT, information technology systems integration services, which eventually became the first joint venture of a global company called Sun Microsystems USA, based in San Francisco, California. And now currently co-managing with my husband, again, the first and only world-class theme park. It's a 26-year-old theme park called Enchanted Kingdom, owned by 2 family corporations. So in the government, as a division director, I was responsible and I was reporting to the PICARD governing board. So I was definitely one of the divisions who made sure that we monitor all agricultural research projects, and we made sure that we did good service and are accountable for how the government funds are being used to fund agricultural research projects. And I did say to you that because I purchased computer equipment, there was one supplier who said, "Oh, hindi ka pala government." Sabi ko, "Huh? I am from government. PICARD is under the Department of Science and Technology." And primarily because he said, "Oh, how come you don't ask for the kalakaran, the SOP?" And I just realized that some government purchasers or purchasing officers required a 20% commission on all IT purchases. So obviously, that was probably so different from then, but that's me. And of course, if they wanted to donate, it was through a deed of donation, which was the proper way of doing it. Now, of course, even as we started our own entrepreneurial IT company, and because we were very successful in capturing the market share and winning big government projects, of course, we were also faced with the challenges of being now an IT supplier, an IT provider. And of course, we did, and as country managing director, I was reporting to another board. And this was headed by the VP for Asia Pacific, a Singaporean. Of course, Singaporeans and Filipinos have a different way of treating our staff, especially non-producing staff, because we do have sales targets. Number 2, at the time, during my time, it was a male-dominated field. And at the time, also, they'll probably squeeze you, from your profits until you really fight it out. But this is my company. You invested into it. I want the biggest project for you, for your brand. Now give me what is due me. So I did see that, and I fought for it. And I could just imagine that he probably was used to going home to a Filipina domestic helper. And so he probably realized a Filipina woman leader of an IT company and branded locally as one of the most powerful women in IT will never give in to what he wants, no? But now, of course, as we manage, again, with my husband, the 26-year-old theme park, again, we're faced with challenges, no? And especially when we comply with government requirements, the OH, Bureau of Fire Protection, and of course, BIR, no? But in all of these 3 different corporate environments, I'd like to state the fact that corporate good governance is still the same. It is not because the board wants you to do it, but it is because of who I am as a woman leader. I bring my values to the workplace, I impose my values, and I do not conform to whatever the culture is in that particular environment. I'd like to support what Ricky said. In government, I saw it. Of course, I was very young then and pretty then. I saw the sexual harassment part. I saw the sexual harassment part. Men are wolves. They will try. but it depends on your values, and they will see who will give in and who will stand firm with values, no, and mammalian devotees, so to speak. So in
Thanks
short,
for sharing that.
for all the three, I did say that the board probably doesn't need much control if integrity is in place. The board must also be very clear and aligned with the values of management team, because in all the three, I am part of management. And because I hold dear my Christian values, then the board supports that. And of course, the board must align the values, no? And I also would like that to share, because Jesus is my CEO, just like all of you. In Proverbs 3:7, better a poor man who walks in his integrity than he who is crooked in his ways and rich. Oh, how relevant it is now for the coming elections, right? But as I've said, as a woman leader, we adhere to corporate good governance, and we do things ethically, even when no one is looking, because at the end, what we practice is stewardship. Whatever is given to us, we must really hold dear and implement, as if it were our own. We practice spirituality in the workplace. I remember Sabsi doing a project on institutional spirituality, and we passed that. I also give talks on spirituality and servant leadership. So that at the end of my life's journey, I'd like to claim Matthew 25:23. Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Thank you, Monette, for inviting me.
Thank you, Cynthia. What you said is actually truly aligned to what Chit said. So it's very interesting when you were talking about your company being into a project, joint venture with a foreign company. And when we were talking before this event, thing that cropped up, which is the cultural values.
Yes.
Having worked with different cultures, iba. You were talking about Singapore being different when it comes, if you're not performing, you're out. Chit, you also were mentioning some things about culture, if you could share that. And also the other thing that we had talked about, which I'd like for you to share and bring up here, is the matter of risk and how important that is, handling risk as a board member.
Yes. I have many anecdotes on culture in the board. I've been in boards, joint venture, where we have something like 3 languages, okay? Japanese, English, and Spanish, okay? And I'm the only one who speaks English. Of course, I understand some Spanish. So you can see the interaction. The Japanese will talk first in Japanese if there are issues. The Chinese will do the same. And then there I was, and then they would say, oh, ito na lang ang sabihin mo. Okay? Because there's conflict. Okay? So that's one. I've been in another board where it is very straightforward. It's a joint venture between Americans and Filipinos. And everything is to the letter. You cannot do otherwise. And it's a major US firm, major in a major industry, a major investor in a major industry in the US. So everything is straightforward. So you have to be straightforward. Well, one reason in the last probably 7 years, I was in another board, and it's a joint venture between a big conglomerate here, I will not mention, and a Middle Eastern country. And I was nominated through an international executive search company out of Singapore, and I received a call saying if I would be interested. So I had to do my due diligence on the group. And I said, after some due diligence, I said, okay, but I would like to know if there is any insurance. I'm entitled to. Okay, because it is a big industry, very competitive, and the Middle Eastern country, they can run away anytime, and whatever money they put here, that's peanuts for them. Okay, and there is the major conglomerate here, and they can fight it in court, but I am an independent director. So I have to court for my legal expenses. So I said, I want an insurance coverage, but for as long as my acts are acts of a director true to form, and I will be sued, because if the officers or the company is sued for non-compliance to laws and regulations, the board will also be sued, the members of the board. And I got the insurance. I fought it out.
Got it.
Yes.
I got it. Okay. And
Okay,
I-
congratulations.
Yes, you have to manage the risk. Not only the risk of the entity represented by the corporation where you sit as a board member, but more importantly, your own self. You know, because otherwise, who will take care of you? And you can.
That is really an eye-opener, Chit, no? Thank you for sharing that. For everyone who's here listening, if you're joining a board, look at the risk to you as a member of the board, because they can actually sue you. Okay, ladies, time has flown again, and we have to end this particular Stay Open Forum later. Thank you so much, Chit. Thank you, Cynthia. Your CEO is also my CEO, our CEO. Okay, for our last 15-minute fireside chat, we are going to take a look at sustainability, reputation, and stakeholder interface. And our two very strong women who I will be introducing are, first, let's talk about the person who's coming as a CG expert. We have Imelda Ida Seniza Tiongson. She is the president of an ING-formed SPV company called Opal Portfolio Investments Incorporated. She is in charge of handling distressed assets and turning around businesses, very importantly now. She started as a traditional banker, having worked at National Australia Bank and Philippine National Bank for over 22 years. Board trustee of FinTech Alliance PH, FinTech Philippines Association, Institute of Corporate Directors, and was newly voted as the Women Biz Trustee and Treasurer. She is also Vice Chair of MAP's Governance Committee. She sits as an independent director at Surpass Inc., Seed Inc. Technology, and recently got appointed, yay, as the chairperson of PruLife UK PH. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Ida Tiongson with us, and joining her is the very first chairwoman of the Philippine National Bank, Flor Tariela. Flor was the first and the only independent director chairwoman in the banking industry. What a feat! She is also former Undersecretary of Finance and the first Filipino Vice President of Citibank. She is a trustee of Finex, Tulay sa Pagunlad, and the Philippine Bible Society. She's an Institute of Corporate Directors Fellow, a columnist for Manila Bulletin's Business Options and Business World's Finex Folio. She also established, this is my favorite, Flor's Garden in Antipolo, which is an agricultural training institute, which is an accredited National Extension Service provider, as well as a DOT accredited agri-tourism site. Okay, so we have Ida and we have Flor with us, both with huge banking experience. But first, let me ask Ida, can you kindly explain to our guests, what do we mean by sustainability, reputation, and stakeholder interface?
Okay. But before I start on that one, I've been kind of gearing up. Ang galing ng mga conversations of the earlier women.
Oo nga, totoo yan.
Bawat conversation I wanted to be part. I want to just quickly a little bit of a background. No, I've encountered harassment at at work. That's in Australia, by the way. Also discrimination, I've encountered that. I've also encountered, not being taken seriously. I've also encountered what I did. I grew up without having a father because my dad died at a young age. I was 6 years old then. Okay, and my mom lost all her investments in a bank that closed down. So we had to shift to Australia to study there because it's kind of cheaper and all of that stuff. And my mom got blessed because she was sent there by work. So parang lahat ng discussions I wanted to kind of join in. My very first board, at a young age, creditors nominee, I was with Philippine National Bank then, wasn't being taken seriously. So my trick was I'll put up my hair, which I'm going to do today, and I would actually literally wear glasses. So yeah. But I found out
You look older.
So I found out that this is actually not the right way to do. I went finally got ICD, and from there on, I've embedded good governance. I feel so much at home doing this governance. So there. Okay. So the topic on the 3 topics that assigned to us in the first place, the earlier ladies, they talked about principles of good governance. There are actually 11 principles of good governance. Embedded there, what Chiki and Rosemary said, independence and fairness, and Chit and Maricel talked about accountability, transparency, and openness. And board as a collegial body was actually discussed by Chit and Cynthia, talking about best practices, having that check and balance, i.e. control environment, and the commitment of the board. So on our part, those are what. And so what, right? So you do those, meron ba talagang effect? So we're talking about, why do good governance? Sorry, may slides ako kasi ganun ako. I have to put up a point there. So why do you do good governance? And there's a lot of reasons why. And 3 of the ones that we're going to tackle. And among those may access to financing, entrepreneurial performance, and all of that stuff. But 3 major points, what we're discussing now, is when you do those, why? Is because you can have improved reputation. So may I tackle one at a time as we go along? Because otherwise it's going to sound like a lecture. You warned us not to lecture.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm going to start just with this, and then we'll discuss the rest of it. Ricky tackled trust, diba? So trust, reputation, really primarily, it's very, very that, I cannot emphasize, do more emphasis than it's that important to have trust in the business. People, if they like you, they listen to you, but if they trust you, they'll do business with you. So trust is important. And, particularly when it comes to finance, like insurance and banking. And when you have that, there's a domino effect in improving the business. I'm going to show that later. So back to you, Manette.
Okay, but from Flor, because you talked, Ida, about reputation, which is very important, and the trust factor. Flor, in your experience, you were PNB first woman heading that, and from very, very big, now you're doing agri. Tell us the trust factor and the reputation.
Okay.
How does that fall into the picture?
Yeah. First, I like to say, I'm very impressed with, all the chit chats earlier than us. But reputation, first, what is reputation? It's what other people think of you. So you just said, Ida, was just elected as the chairwoman of Pro-Life. Why? Because of her reputation, that she is an excellent worker. She's very good in digitalization, which is what's needed now. But, so very important for me in terms of reputation, okay, is because you may have a good reputation now, but you have to continuously work at it because it can change in just one like that, okay? I had lunch this morning and I was talking to this young mother. She has a house in a subdivision that is owned by reputable people, okay? Reputable corporation. You know what she said? Tita, one of their managers wanted to maybe look good to me. So what this manager did was to attach her water system to the water system of Tagaytay. Okay? And it was illegal. So what I am saying is this: the board may be reputable, management, senior management may be reputable, but we need to make sure that the policies, the execution of the smallest person in the institution is following it, because just one mistake can change your reputation overnight. She may think that the owners of the subdivision, that's what they're continuously that's what they're doing all the time, but no, I know the owners. Okay, so reputation really, you said for PNB, and now I have a garden. I always say under promise. When you say I'm going to deliver on such a date, you do it. Okay, if your supplier tells you I can deliver on this date, please give an allowance, because once you say that that's your date, that's your commitment as well. But you don't know if your supplier will send it that day or not. So under promise and over deliver. Okay, and make sure. Well, for banks, we are quite fortunate. Okay, because for banks, we are strictly regulated, so compliance is very, very strict. Okay, so you have to make sure you have a very good compliance officer as well, making sure that they know all the rules and protecting the board and management. But very critical really also is your board. I was just talking to Ida and I said, you may have a good company, but be careful also that you also always put the right board members. What did you say, Ida? Just one board member can also, what's that? Rotten egg or something?
Rotten egg will
could affect. Okay. And I was also hearing in the earlier discussion, if there is any issue among the board members, between management, the board, the chairman, the board, please discuss it face to face. Resolve it. Don't put your dirty linens out in the street. Okay? Because that is one thing that can really hurt the reputation of the company.
So true. We still have two principles. So Ida, want to tackle the next?
No, we can go on and on about the reputation. The reputation is both personal and the corporation, and vice versa.
Yes.
Dala ka rin, So the other principle, which is kind of among my favorite, is the sustainability. But when it comes to sustainability, dalawa yun eh. We're talking about, we could be the financial sustainability. Can you continue doing this while doing good governance? And some people will say, well, it's restricting us. It's kind of like an audit mentality, analysis paralysis. Actually, that's not the case. The other sustainability is sustainable development, and which is an approach on economic development without compromising the quality of the environment for the future. So those two are part and parcel of sustainability. On the meaning of sustainability that I want to touch on is there really a correlation between doing good governance and earning and being profitable? Yeah, being a stats person, the answer is a resounding yes. There's a lot of studies overseas, but we have our own in the Philippines. If you can actually look at here, that's market capitalization of those ones doing good governance, or should I say high score in the ASEAN Corporate Governance Scorecard, are the ones getting more investors in, thus improving market capitalization. More so, para akong lecturer, so I'm going to be just 1 second more, return on investment or return on equity. There's a direct correlation if you can actually see that. But is that, sabi nga niya, is it a silver bullet? Of course not. But at least you're improving from where you're at to where you want to reach.
Flor, is that experience the same? Could you touch on that, please?
Yeah. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, sustainability, I define it as the ability to continue over a long period of time. Meaning,
surviving.
what you're going to do today, you should be able to do for a long time. So can you eat lechon every day, Monet? No, you'll be fat. You'll have alta presión, okay? So that's my simple definition of sustainability, okay? And it's really for me the 3 P's: planet, people, and profit, okay? So to put it down to basics, because I'm a gardener, okay? Or, also now, but this will also be good for companies. One is, let's look at how we can save the planet and also reduce our costs and also be healthy for our people. For example, look around you. Is your light still the expensive ones, or have you changed to solar or LED? Okay. In your garbage, are you doing segregation, or is it all mixed up? Are you doing composting? Okay. Are you still using single plastic, or are you now bringing your bags to the grocery? I mean, very, very basic. And for me, because you just reuse, recycle, upcycle, repurpose, okay? So you don't spend all the time, especially in this pandemic. And because I'm a gardener, please plant. Plant something you can eat, okay? Because when you plant something you can eat, okay, you are going to be healthy. Oh, that's people. And you're going to save costs. You're going to reduce energy to go to the market. And if you cannot go out, like the price of gasoline has shot up, you can just pick it up, and it's so good, I tell you. And don't tell me I have no space, okay? Because you can use any discarded Coca-Cola bottle or any bottle that, to plant. And you can conserve water, by the way, that is very good for, excuse me. That's very good for washing for watering the plants, yung hugas bigas, or even your last laundry rinse, because water is going to be a big issue in the coming months. So anyway, planet, people, profits. So you can reduce your cost, you can help climate change, and even be healthy. Very basic.
Thank you, Flor. Thank you, Flor. There's more with stakeholder interface.
Yeah.
Yes.
So can you touch on that, Ida?
Yeah. Just to connect the people, planet, profit, because when there's actually, I don't have this with me now, but there's an actual statistics that a lot of investors are looking into businesses that are into strong ESG.
Yes.
So that's one of the
yes.
Yeah. So our third one. So why do corporate governance? It's because it does strengthen stakeholders relationship. Nabanggit nga ni Ms. Flor, communication. Don't have it out in the public. Apart from that, it's not just within the board, but when you're talking about stakeholders, of course, we're talking about the rest of the stakeholders. We're talking about investors, employees, customers, suppliers, vendors, communities. Again, that's kind of when the business and the company is trusted, and at the same time following good governance, medyo lack of a better word, takot na to do something that is not right. And to, when you encounter something that could be a reputational problem, then pumunta ka dun sa, you address it straight away, because you're trying to protect also all the stakeholders. So, I could, again, name a lot of examples, both in personal life, in strengthening the stakeholders, but you need them because it completes the full picture. And by doing that, it actually connects to the enhancement of the sustainability as well.
Thanks, Ida. Flor, on the stakeholder interface, your experience, please.
Yeah, there's so many stakeholders, okay? Like your shareholder, your customers. So for the bank's customer would like low interest, okay? Diba? Okay. But you know what, where does that bring you? Okay, you will have less profit, so it's against the shareholders' interest. Now that the price of gasoline has gone up, the labor will ask for increased wages. Maybe it's time to look at it, because there is a reason. So the point is you could have conflicting interests by the different stakeholders, you know. So for me, okay, given data, we should have data that I think Chit mentioned that. Let us always decide on the best for the company. And if you decide what is the best for the company, you will be fair to any of the shareholder. Maybe today you will be looking at the needs of the employee, okay? Because of the higher gasoline. Maybe tomorrow it will be, you know, depending on the economic development. So it really.
I think Flor must have frozen. Maybe it's her internet connection,
Okay.
but our 15 minutes actually has been
Oh,
up.
no.
So, but
Can I just quickly add on, because I
Okay.
sat as a creditor nominee in a where the bank has a debt on, and you know, with that regards on a stakeholder, even if it was like they were applying for rehab, I needed to support because it's what is best for the company. Always think what is best for the company,
Yes.
not what is best to who you are representing to.
Yeah, right.
Correct. So you really have to take a look at all the different stakeholders. It's not just
Definitely.
the people who own employees, even media, even the community.
No.
That's and all of the piece. But our 15
Definitely.
minutes is up. So ladies, please stay behind. We will have an open forum later. But for now, for our guests, the title of this event, actually, if you will take a look at this, Corporate Governance 101 with a gender lens, and it's in pink. And for that, we're going to call in a guest who's going to talk to us and tell us what is corporate governance and the gender lens. So let me just introduce her. Maria Aurora Boots Jotina Garcia is currently the president of Mageo Consulting, a company providing business advisory and corporate finance services. She is the first female chairperson of the Business Conversion and Development Authority, or BCD. She sits as a member of the board of directors of publicly listed and private corporations engaged in real estate development, renewable energy, exploration, and healthcare. She is also the founding chairperson and current president of the Philippine Women's Economic Network, or PhilWen, co-chair of the Philippine Business Coalition for Women Empowerment, co-convener of Male Champions of Change Philippines, and former co-chair of the ASEAN Women Entrepreneurs Network, or AWEN. She was also past chair and president of Women Biz and vice chair and fellow of the Institute of Corporate Directors, ICD, where she oversees the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, under which this event is a project. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I call Boots now to explain to us what is corporate governance and what's the role of gender lens in all of this. Boots, over to you.
Thank you. I hope you guys still have the energy to listen to me.
Yes.
But, you know, I will try to marry the two concepts. Early on, we had women talking about corporate governance and, you know, their understanding of the concepts as well as their own experiences applying them. So allow me to, as I said, you know, tie these two concepts together to this short presentation that I have prepared for everyone. So let me begin by a definition of terms, okay? Oftentimes, the terms sex and gender have been used interchangeably, but it should be noted that they are distinct, okay? On one hand, sex refers to biological differences between male and female. These are fixed, natural, and unchanging, and it really consists of a male and a female dichotomy. On the other hand, gender is a social construction relating to behaviors, norms, and attributes, and varies from society to society, and can change, and usually based on labels of masculinity or femininity. Okay, let me probe on this topic further and share with you some interesting concepts from a book entitled The Female Brain by Luann Brizendine, who happens to be a physician. Research shows that most aspects of male and female brains are similar. IQ averages are the same,
and both are capable of excellence at physical, artistic, and intellectual pursuits. It mentions differences as well. Women tend to have a faster and better fine motor skills, as well as faster and broader verbal skills. Women and men may come to the same answer in problem solving, although they use different brain circuitry to find solutions. Women have more neurons in the part of the brain devoted to emotions and to detecting emotions in order. So there are obvious differences between males and females observed in society, and these are present from infancy through adulthood. And there's no doubt that regardless of how our brains look like, behaviors and school performance differences between men and women are strongly shaped by socialization, whether at home, in school, in the workplace, and even in media. So although 99% genetically alike, male and female brains have evolved and see the world through a unique lens. Gender cues such as manly and ladylike mold our abilities and behaviors, and most of the time it is unconscious. Take the example in career promotion. When women reach their childbearing age, they have a tendency to drop out and step back to cater to their domestic or motherly responsibilities, while the fathers are expected to pursue their career advancement. This discussion is really timely as we are celebrating International Women's Month with the theme Break the Bias. So that said, let me also share with you some insights on Invisible Women, Exposing Data Bias in a World Designed for Men by Caroline Criado Perez, based on research conducted in Europe. You may or may not agree with the observations that are being made in this book, but I'd like to share them with you just the same for purposes of discussion. So in this book, gender bias is uncovered and how it affects our everyday lives, and also examines different elements of the modern world that demonstrate the inconvenience consequence when male is the default form of humanity. As simple as using man to represent all human beings is a hint of silencing women and setting them aside from policies, research, technology, transportation systems, product developments, and the media. Let me just emphasize that this is not my opinion, but rather the opinion of the author. So here are some examples of based on reality coming out of the research. The book says the average smartphone size is 5.5 inches, which men comfortably use one-handed, but it could be too large to fit on the average size of a woman's hand. They said also that most office building temperatures are designed for the metabolic rates of men, which make it maybe too cold for women in particular. Women and men differ in symptoms and response to medical treatments, yet clinical and biomedical trials often exclude sex-specific information. So let's take a real example. The administration of the COVID vaccines has had varying effects on males and females, including pregnant women. And in a study on adverse effects reported to the CDC found that 80% of the reports of severe allergic reaction came from women. Could there have been a relationship between gender and immune response that was not considered in formulating the vaccines, which could put women at risk? Furthermore, the author explains that many of these products fail to include women's needs and often create an unintentional bias, often masked as gender neutral. Average does not accurately reflect society if women most of the time are not considered. And so the book arrives at this inevitable conclusion that the world built for and by men may be ignoring half of the population. So let's talk about what it means to have a gender lens. To my mind, it means recognizing and accepting that there are differences between males and females. It is taking a conscious, deliberate, intentional, and proactive approach in crafting an organization's corporate governance practices, regardless of size, nature of business, operations, among others, with a gender lens. So that said, Why? Why the need to have a gender lens? Well, it's simple, and data is there to support this. It is because women make up 50% of the local and global population, therefore accounting for half of potential consumers, suppliers, and the talent pool. It is because women drive up to 85% on consumer purchasing decisions, an important consideration, for example, in developing your marketing strategies. Applying a gendered and diverse perspective brings unique tools and a broader range of backgrounds. In business, more diversified management teams will collectively possess more information and will have a higher chance of making better decisions. Firms with gender equality supportive policies provide a less stressful work environment and have a lower employee turnover, which in turn enhances human and social capital of the company. And in a post-COVID setting, emphasis has been made more now on harmonizing the varied interests of stakeholders, including employees, male and female. Importance given to emotional intelligence, qualities of empathy and humility, and having a caring attitude and concern for others. And that decision-making strategies should be congruent with diversity and inclusion. Having understood a bit about, what gender lens is all about and what it means, let me now talk about how you could incorporate gender lens in corporate governance. While the business case is clear, driving the diversity will not happen on its own, or inclusion. It will take concerted efforts to address cultural barriers that prevent women from reaching, among other, senior leadership roles. So what are the keys to adopting a gender lens? I call them the 5 C's. First is change. It needs a mindset change that indeed gender inequality exists and needs to be addressed. It requires commitment. Forward-thinking organizations are serious about diversity. Diverse boards are a catalyst for equality and inclusion in business and are more likely to insist on fairness from pay to promotion. You need culture. Diversity matters where members' perspectives are regularly elicited and valued. To make, for example, diverse and gender-sensitive boards more effective, leaders need to establish a more egalitarian culture, one that elevates different voices, integrates contrasting insights, and welcomes conversations about diversity. Clarity. The visible presence of boards, CEOs, and directors can play a vital role to ensure that the positive shifts toward gender equality are not lost as organizations respond to changes. And finally, compliance. The board should set the tone at the top that demonstrates the company's commitment to integrity and legal compliance. This tone lays the groundwork for a corporate culture that is communicated to personnel at all levels of the organization. Well, it's good to know about these principles. I think it will be best understood if we cite specific examples of how the gender lens has been adopted in the corporate governance practices of both local and international companies. So let me begin at some examples outside of the Philippines. So in December 2020, the US Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, one of the boards in NASDAQ filed a proposal to include gender and ethnicity requirements for its listed companies. So the US SEC approved the proposal in August 2021, which set out minimum targets for boards, including having at least one female director and at least one director who self-identifies as a racial minority, among others. And companies who do not meet this requirement would have to publicly explain. So over 2025 to 2026, the quota will increase to at least 2 diverse directors, one from each diversity group, including a female director. Similarly, in 2021, BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, is pushing for US companies to aim for a board that is 30% diverse, including at least 2 or more women, and at least 1 who identifies as a member of an underrepresented group. Okay. Another example is We Connect International. It is a coalition of over 60 large multinational companies committed to sourcing more from women-owned businesses in over 100 countries, in line with the concept of gender-based procurement. In the Philippines, particularly in ICD, we do walk the talk. In 2021, we achieved a gender equal board, one of the few, if not the first, among the major business organizations. Aside from gender parity, the ICD board comprises trustees with varied industry backgrounds, and the age distribution is almost equal among different age groups. This just shows that D&I initiatives for diversity, for that matter, should be led from the top and must begin in the boardroom. To demonstrate the importance of this agenda to ICD, we have formed a diversity and inclusion committee, which, as Monette mentioned earlier, I also oversee as trustee. And among its members, in fact, are speakers in the panel today. A final point that I'd like to make about ICD is we have, in fact, put as one of our KRAs to achieve gender parity in our membership in 2024, where it stands today at only 30% females and 70% male. I also would be not be doing justice if I do not mention the fact that Rick Jacinto, who spoke earlier, during the time when he was still CEO of ICD, in fact, initiated the diversity in, Women in Boards initiative, and now expanded to diversity and inclusion, when he and I together, organized a webinar on women in boards, where we invited Irene Natividad, who's a foremost advocate of women in boards, and also initiated the 2017 study on women on boards, which we will be updating soon. Now, let me also now share examples outside of ICD. Let's start with the Ayala Group. Everybody knows who they are. It has set a board diversity policy and is committed to continue increasing the number of women from entry level to senior leadership positions. In an event organized by the Male Champions of Change Philippines last March, Ayala President and CEO Fernando Sobelda Ayala said that the group is aligning its diversity programs with best-in-class global standards while working with peers to make diversity inclusion as the norm in Philippine business. I'd like also to share with you that AC Energy, or ASEN, the listed energy platform of the Ayala Group, has 45%, 5 out of 11 women in the board of directors, one of whom is myself. Okay. I also like to share some practices of the members of the Philippine Business Coalition for Women Empowerment, which I also happen to be involved with. Ayala Land, a founding member of PBCW, in a 2021 case study on embracing digitalization, shared that they are now more conscious of inclusion and the importance of diversity in the training programs, ensuring that females participate and undergo training, whether on-site or off-site, despite the work-from-home setting, which affects their ability to train due to their domestic responsibilities. I would also like to mention the Philippine National Bank, which during the chairship of Flor became a member of the Philippine Business Coalition for Women Empowerment. So PNB, realizing, of course, that women are usually the victims of sexual harassment in the workplace, as we have shared earlier, strengthened its anti-sexual harassment policy and implementation. The bank recognizes that the zero-tolerance stand against harassment can help preserve its corporate image and manage reputational risks. For PNB, living up to their motto of putting people first and ensuring a safe workplace for its employees, have helped them gain the trust of their people. Okay. With regard to gender smart lending, another example worth mentioning, PNB, after analyzing its loan portfolio, realized that more than 50% of credit card holders, small business loan grantees, and business owners are women. So in response, PNB is intuitive in integrating its gender-based data and its financial analysis to find additional opportunities and mitigate risks for women entrepreneurs. So for PNB, this decision could lead to good credit portfolios, financial returns and inclusion, improved social and economic impact, and ultimately leading to reducing the gender gap. In my alma mater firm, SGV and Company, in line with the firm's commitment to diversity, inclusion, sustainability, and people development, through its flexible work arrangement policies, embrace the concept that the ability to work flexibly is a key differentiator for recruitment and critical to employee retention, productivity, and engagement. SGV's flexible work arrangement policies are aligned with the firm's purpose and goal of nurturing leaders and enabling businesses for a better Philippines. I'd also like to mention Insular Life, or InLife, which has developed financial literacy seminars such as the She Heroes. It is a program that aims to empower Filipino women and expand their access to risk mitigating solutions and investment opportunities by educating them on financial management, health and well-being, and providing the network access and solutions to women's specific concerns. Note that majority of insurance agents are women, and as I mentioned earlier, women decide on household purchases, including insurance. Likewise, InLife has introduced a comprehensive company health plan as part of a larger effort to safeguard health and well-being, covering maternity benefits for employees and even their dependents. So InLife has sought to create a more family and oriented benefits package as a strategy for women to join the workforce. For InLife, it is about creating outrageously good employee experience. Meralco, the first distribution utility member of PBCB, believes that diversity is a key enabler of business performance and sustainability. True to Meralco's hashtag powering the Good Life campaign, they also launched its gender diversity and inclusion program called #Embrace, with the goal of developing and implementing initiatives that will help shape a more gender-balanced workplace. Presently, Meralco's workforce is comprised of 32% women, almost triple the global energy sector average of 11%. Meralco also pioneered a training program for line women since 2013. This paradigm shift challenges the gender assumption that utility industries are exclusive to men through this particular training. So in the process, through this program, eventually eliminate gender stereotyping and discrimination. Then finally, Shell Philippines, one of the founding members of the Male Champions of Change Philippines, appointed the first female president and CEO, Lorelei Kiambao Asyal. Lorelei made history not only in Shell Philippines, but also in the local petroleum industry by being the first woman at the helm of a leading oil refining and marketing business. A pioneering journey for Shell on its more than 100 years of operations in the Philippines. As a final note, I'd like to mention, although already mentioned by Ida earlier, so what are the benefits of having a gender lens perspective in corporate governance? Good governance helps firms improve performance, drive growth, manage risks, attract and retain investors, and weather financial crises. Other benefits include improved financial performance and shareholder value, increased customer and employee satisfaction, rising investor confidence, and greater market knowledge and reputation. More companies are recognizing the value of boards that feature a mix of well-qualified male and female directors, representing a range of perspectives, experience, and background. Gender equality is a fundamental human right, and thus a gender lens in corporate governance is necessary in achieving a formidable, thriving, and sustainable world. So this conversation about corporate governance with the gender lens and diversity is gathering speed. That's why we have the event today. It is crucial to emphasize the role of gender equality and diversity and inclusion to drive innovation, business competitiveness, and good corporate governance, as well as highlight the critical role of active and visible leadership. So I'd like to end with this quote from Jack Ma. He said, "In the future world, we will have a lot of women leaders, because in the future, people will not only focus on muscle or power, but they will focus more on wisdom. They focus on caring and responsibility." Thank you very much and good afternoon to all. Thank you for your support for this event.
Thank you very, very much, Booth, for showing us that indeed gender lens can fit into corporate governance and for giving us crystal clear examples of being implemented right now. Okay, so right now we have very short open forum. Now's your chance. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Please put here on the chat so that we can address your questions. I do not see anything in the Q&A right now, and on the chat, now's your chance to ask your questions. I've asked all of the speakers to stay behind. They are all available now for any questions that you have. In the meantime, while there are no questions that I can see on the board, I just want to bring up something. You know, recently I had a conversation with my daughter on International Women's Day. This was for her podcast, and it was very interesting because we were talking about the importance of having women at the table. Because if women are at the table, in a board table, in leadership, then they can address the issues that confront women. And then she told me, you know, Mom, sometimes it's not prescribed that you have X number of women in the board. So she said, did you hear about this lady? She's Shirley Chisholm. I hope I pronounced it right. She's a congresswoman.
Yeah.
And she actually stepped up. She's Black, no? She claimed her seat at the table of public discourse, and she made a difference by representing a wide range of people and issues. So it's not just gender. I mean, it's not just sex, but gender as well. So her quote was, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Just make your voice heard. That's exactly what the ladies were talking about earlier, that it's important that we bring out our voice, right? Okay, on the chat right now, still nothing on the chat. So if any of our speakers would actually like to say something, now's your chance. If you want to ask the others. Yes, Boots, you're raising your hand.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
actually answered some of the comments on the chat. There was a question about, what was it? It seems like only the boss knows her value and the rest of the organization does not appreciate her. So I said, you know, in situations like that, that's precisely where you have to talk about, you have to voice it out. Show the rest of the people in the organization that you are competent and able to do something. The boss, don't limit yourself to your boss, okay? You have to deal with your peers. You have to deal with your other with the other people in the organization. And when more people know what you're competent with, there's no reason why you will not be recognized in the organization.
Thank you, Boots. Chiki, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, there are a lot of cultural issues involved here when we talk about women bringing their own seat, for example, or being able to voice out. Not a lot of women are assertive enough. No, actually, there's a problem about requiring or urging women to be more assertive because it's painful. You know, it's not natural for a lot of women, especially again in our age group, huh? So, kasi I think the younger people now are more empowered, the younger girls, no? But there is always this age group that we weren't trained to be vocal enough, or we are always trained to be polite, no? And and that is a challenge even for HR, for example. When a lot of young people, you expect women, you have to speak up, but it's not natural for them. Therefore, the organization, the management will have to make that space safe for that young women or women to be able to air their experiences and to be heard. No, always that listen. It's not just to be listened to have a voice, have a platform, but to be heard what they're really saying. Again, a lot of cultural issues that have to be. So, for example, na lang when some men can afford to call meetings at 5:30 in the afternoon, emergency, we have a 5:30 meeting. And there's a gender component there about women having to go home to cook dinner or to be with their children for their homework. And if you want to support this power woman in their jobs, you have to make a rule. HR has to make a rule. No work, no meetings at 5:30. So those kinds of adjustments, just so you capture the best talent of women who won't be, because the family issue is real as well.
I like what you just brought up, and that brings to fore the issue of unpaid work, that women are actually doing a lot more work at home compared to their counterpart and still be working. So taking care of aged parents, taking care of children, tutoring them, cooking. I know I suffered that during the pandemic as cooking. Boots, you're raising your hand. What's this?
I wanted to react to Chiki's point. That's precisely why you need to have a gender lens. You need to recognize that women are not as assertive, perhaps, as unlike the bunch of women in this panel, and our honorary female, Ricky. That's where you need the gender lens. You have to recognize that there are different cultural differences, behavioral differences. So how would I address that? The seeming shy woman. I will make it a point as a leader, as part of my corporate policy, that in any discussion, women should be represented. For example, in many of the companies during the pandemic, we all know that women were the most affected. An example was Shell. Intentionally, Shell made sure that the COVID response team had women and were in fact led by women, because you realized, Cesar Romero, the past president, realized that they know what issues were faced by these women. So that's just an example of where you have to deliberately and intentionally have a gender lens to be able to address those issues. I'd like to stop at that.
Yeah, actually, in the fact, the quietness or the unassertiveness of women sometimes begins at home in the training while they are still young, when they can see the role models of the mother just saying yes to the father. Whatever he says, I will follow. So that's what they come up with. And they and I also discussed that in terms of how do we make sure that the next generation, women will be more assertive. Now, there's a question here on the chat. So from Stephanie Franco, it seems women need more assertiveness. What then is required of men behaviorally? Does this also need to be addressed? Uy. Let's ask Ricky.
Only one person who can answer that. The best person.
Well, I think one is obviously awareness. When we're mindful that we're putting down or disadvantaging other people, I would like to think that many men do not do this intentionally. Many of you said that it's conditioned by culture. Having said that, that doesn't make it right either. And I think when you call people out, I think most men will probably say, "Oh nga, no." And I'm a firm believer. I mean, every Filipino male is really, really influenced by his mother, and so there's that deep, I think, well of respect. Speaking for myself, I mean, wala akong takot. I've faced many problems in the past, many personalities, but if my mother calls me, I drop everything. I'm conditioned to, you gotta answer her, and bless her soul. But even if she was 93 years old, nako, you don't want to make mom mad. You really don't want to make mom mad. So I think it's really making people aware, making men aware, mindful. And by the way, this also extends to, gender awareness, LGBTQ plus. It's making people aware. We're lucky that I think the younger generations are more aware of it. So they don't have the same hang up, Chiki, I think, that people in my generation have. They're more open, they're more sensitive. So it's really there. But having said that, I mean, if you look at professions today, accounting, lawyers, the legal profession, engineering, medicine, women are the majority right now. So this is the wave that's coming. So people, men in particular, better get with it because the tsunami is about to hit. Thank you.
Salamat, tsunami talaga. There's a question here. Are there studies that show that inclusion of women in corporate boards improve the firm's performance or reputation for good governance? I know there are, but perhaps Boots, you can share.
May I request Chit to answer that question?
O yan, Chit. Boss in your court.
There are many studies that show that diversity in boards lead to profitable companies. So even if you just Google it, you can see McKinsey studies, and you can also look at the research done by Irina Natividad of the Global Summit of Women. She has the Women Corporate Directors International research, and they update it, almost every year. So Cynthia, I think Cynthia asked that so that we can declare it to everyone, that diversity means profitability. And I think I did mention that in our chat kanina with Monette and Maricel.
Thank you, Chit. There's a question here. Oh, sorry.
Actually,
Maricel had her hand up. Sige, Maricel.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and say sometimes, even women leaders have a lack of consciousness of the gender lens. I'll give you a simple example. When in the school board, we started to review the policies for the teachers and staff, I remember I was surprised. I had an argument with my sister who runs the school, okay? Because I was fighting for more days for the paternity leave. And she said, no. Number one, we have less male teachers. Number two, 3 days is enough, okay? And I said, no, you need more than that, not just because legally it is required, okay? But the more you get males to participate in the whole, childbirth process and bringing up a baby, the more you get the men to start being primed to share the housework and the domestic chores. And I think sometimes, and my sister is my sister, and she's female, no, but she didn't think about it that way. It took her a few days to think about it, and I really pushed my weight on that one. And eventually she said, yes, you're right. We really need to do something to make men more aware so they become better husbands and partners too.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because really the father figure is also very important. And this is one way of telling both men and women that they must share equally in the load of taking care of that baby that they produced, right? Yes, Ricky.
Just to add a layer to what Maricel said, no? So maybe one thing you do, if the fathers won't take the leave, they lose it.
Yeah.
May ganun eh. Because like Iceland, no, one of the highest ranked in gender equality, actually have years of maternity leave, an X% of which the men have to take. And it's huge. It's like for example, if it's 9 months, 3 months the father should take the leave. It's a big number of days. And if they don't, and exactly to address Maricel's issue on, they need to know. I mean, they can't make an excuse. My son is sick. I don't know what to do. Hello, you stayed with him for three months, right? So that addresses those issues. So Iceland actually already has that in place.
Yeah, good. Thanks for sharing that, Chiki. There is a question on the chat, and this is about the gender pay gap. Are there any cutting-edge strategies that can be done to address the gender pay gap? That means mas marami men get higher pay than women, for example. Anyone would like to touch on that? Boots.
If nobody wants to answer, I'll take it. The reason why we have a gender pay gap is because women tend to end up taking jobs which pay less. Okay, so this is an average number actually. So what is the challenge? The challenge is to upgrade the skills of women to enable them to take on jobs which pay more. Okay, jobs which typically go to men. Because, you know, realistically speaking, what type of jobs do women mostly get? You know, administrative, secretarial, support services, which in many organizations, although it's not exactly a best practice, are paid a lower rank in the pay scale. So if you upgrade them to take on roles in production, operations, more what they call vital, critical functions, then this pay gap will hopefully be reduced.
Okay, Chit has her hand up, and then Ricky, and that this is the last question already.
I know. Okay. I'll
We have
make
no
this
more
quick.
time.
Boots and I sit in the advisory council of TESDA, Women's Center. And what we're pushing there is for women to get jobs in non-traditional trades, or NTT. And with technology, like the quote of Boots from Jack Ma, right now, even technicians and all are helped by technology. So it's no longer brawn, but it's brain. And that will really close the gap if women become more aware that new careers are in the offing, because these new careers are in STEM. These new careers are going to be equal pay for men and women. So I'll stop there. Just read about non-traditional trades. Thank you.
Okay, and Ricky, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if the cutting edge strategy from the point of view of the employee, leave the company. There are many people who are willing to hire good people. They don't care about gender. What they care about is qualifications, experience, and performance. They will pay you what you're due. And I would say, if you're stuck in a dead end, don't bother with these Jurassic companies. No, if you're a contributor, go where you're paid. I mean, it's open right now. It's really open. So don't bang your head on that stone wall.
Thank you, Ricky. Definitely, technology has really made it a level playing field for all. And women are really stepping up. So don't stay in that job that's not making you happy. Go out and, celebrate the fact that you've got those brains and earn and be paid for it. So we've come to the end of our panel discussion, our open forum. Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you so much to our participants also for really being here with us the whole afternoon. So may we call now on for the closing remarks. Let me just introduce the closing remarks will be delivered by Mylene Abiva, the President and CEO of Felta Multimedia, Inc., a 56-year-old company engaged in school technology. She served as the past president of the Philippine Marketing Association. She's a multi-awarded woman and received so many different recognitions from Ernst & Young Entrepreneur Philippines in the women category, ASEAN Business Leader in the women category, ASEAN Women Entrepreneur, 100 most influential Filipino women in the world. It goes on and on, so I'm not going to mention the rest of it. But Mylene has most recently assumed the position of chairwoman of the Women's Business Council Philippines after serving a 2-year term as president. I fondly refer to her as a woman on fire because of the many trailblazing projects that she has undertaken. So over to you, Mylene.
In the past, many women played a somewhat invisible role in their family businesses, working behind the scenes in administrative duties, particularly in finance. That is the case at our family business, Felta Multimedia Incorporated, established 56 years ago. No one said that it would be easy to break away from traditional responsibilities. The very nature of the family business culture and the multiple roles that female family members typically play helped to keep the glass ceiling intact for women, including my mother, who had dual roles doubling her efforts in the business as well as in the family. Due to the influence of societal bias in the past, as well as cultural or family traditions in some cases, women in family businesses were consciously or inadvertently consigned to the role of chief emotional officer in some situations. In this hidden CEO role, women took care of the emotional needs of the family, keeping the family together and perpetuating family's values and traditions. The nurturing spirit of a mother and a wife in a family business serving as a guiding principle in the company. Promoting gender balance at the board level opens the door for more exciting opportunities for family businesses to increase female representation throughout their companies. Appointing women in senior roles can create a trickle-down effect, meaning more gender diversity at the executive level will translate into more gender diversity across the organization. This is the lever that family business leaders need in order to open new roles in the next level of management and ultimately improve gender diversity throughout their entire business. Corporate governance in family business is the key to increasing global competitiveness and building business sustainability for the next generation. It optimizes long-term value to the company founded on the principles of fairness, accountability, and transparency. Thank you for your attendance today to learn more about corporate governance and the roles women play in family businesses and a competitive advantage that they can contribute in the future. Thank you and God bless.
All right, that was a wonderful message from Ms. Mylene Aviva, current chairwoman of the Women's Business Council Philippines. We've now reached the end of this webinar. Thank you to all the speakers, our panelists, and of course, our host and moderator, Ms. Monette, who have given their valuable insights on corporate governance with a gender lens. And also, we want to thank our attendees and everyone. And we also greet you Happy Women's Month. So just a few announcements. As we want to improve our services further, please do answer the evaluation form. You may scan this QR code that's flashed on the screen or simply click the link that's posted on the chat box. Women Biz PH is holding an event on impact digital marketing. This will be on April 27 and April 29, 2022. And here's Ms. Monette again to talk about the book, I Am Woman.
Thank you very much. I just want to do a quick plug, and it's about this book. This is a book that we put together, and it's called I Am Woman. It's a gender-responsive guide for business and corporate leaders. So what we did last year was we brought in the Women Biz members who wrote different chapters on things like communications with a gender lens, looking at the supply chain, looking at policies, and even looking at making sure that the place is safe for women. So make sure that you get a copy because you can really use this in terms of ensuring that you have gender lens in your organization. You can get a printed book or an ebook. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ms. Manette. And just a few more slides. So to prepare us for the upcoming elections, ICD offers this new special webinar. It's called Your Vote, Their Tech, Our Future. This will be on April 6, 2022. The Corporate Governance Orientation Program for government-owned and controlled corporations will be on March 30 to 31, 2022. The registration is still open. The Business Integrity course will be on April 7 and 8, 2022. And of course, our flagship program, the Professional Directors Program, will have another run starting on April 27 and 28, 2022. So on behalf of the Institute of Corporate Directors and Women's Business Council Philippines, thank you everyone for spending your afternoon with us and making this webinar a very meaningful one. Again, thank you everyone and have a great weekend.